So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 2026 Fastpitch Blue Symposium. It's great to see we have another good turnout for this session. I know we're all awaiting warmer weather and less snow, but hopefully it will arrive here shortly. So, first, I'd like to introduce you to the 2026 Fastpitch Committee. Those of you that don't know me, John Snook, um, and I'm the provincial UIC. On the committee this year, we have Steve Gallagher from Zone 9. Steve, if you're on, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
We have Jen Keller Nelson, who's also in Zone 9.
Hey everyone.
We have Paul Cormier from Zone 7
Hello, everybody.
and Jen Johnson from Zone 1.
Hello.
Also, I want to give a shout out to two people who are helping behind the scenes. We have Justin Van Horn, who's helping with education, and I seen Justin was on here somewhere. Do you want to say hi, Justin?
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. And doing our social media and a great job on our Facebook page, we have Brian Reese from Zone 8. Brian, you want to say hi?
Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here.
Thanks. So I'd like to introduce to everyone our executive director from Softball Ontario for a few words, Jonathan Baker.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, John, for that introduction. It's great to see so many familiar faces here tonight, and for those of you who don't have their cameras on, I do recognize a lot of names. So thank you for taking the time to meet tonight. I think this is a great opportunity to kick off the season, and definitely a sign that hopefully warmer weather is on its way. Um, on behalf of Softball Ontario, I just wanted to thank you for having us here tonight, and welcome to this meeting. I also just want to take a moment to introduce the rest of the staff at Softball Ontario. You may know them, you may not, but Troy Moffat is one of our program coordinators.
Hey.
Thanks, Troy. And Amanda Cote is also on the call here tonight.
Hello.
These are the two to reach out to if you have any questions with registration, with clinics, with any sort of issues on the registration system. They're the people to reach out to for any assistance there. Just want to take a minute tonight to thank the Fast Pitch Umpire Committee. John and his team have been hard at work promoting some positive changes to the program here ahead of the season. I won't steal all his thunder, but definitely some great initiatives happening to work at transitioning some of our younger umpires into lifers so we can have them support the game in the future. I don't know if everyone knows this, but one of the a unique stat or a cool stat that we have is we actually have over 1,000 youth umpires in Ontario across the province, which is pretty remarkable numbers from an officiating standpoint when you look at other sports. So there is a great opportunity for us to really support those young umpires and work to transition them into what we call lifers or for uh, to really develop and continue on in our sport. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you who do a great job of supporting our young umpires, the Zooks, the committee, those of you who just support young umpires on your own. I think that's terrific, and we really just want to thank you for all that you're doing to support the development of this program. Also, just want to take a moment to congratulate all the award winners tonight. I know we're acknowledging some award winners later this evening. So just want to congratulate all of those who are receiving awards tonight. Yeah, thank you very much for having us. If you have any questions, please reach out to the office anytime. Enjoy the rest of the meeting tonight, and hopefully the weather warms up and we get to see everyone on the diamond pretty soon.
Thanks, Jonathan. So as Jonathan said, we do have our 11 zone UICs. Some of them can and are on the call tonight, and some couldn't make it. Without them, it would be very tough for the four of us to do everything for the program. So next, I want to introduce our Zooks for 2026. So zone 1, we have Russ Ashford. Zone 2, we have Dennis Roth.
Hey, guys.
Zone 3, we have Kevin D. Domenico. Zone 4, we have Cam Woodcock. Zone
Hello,
5.
everyone. Oh, sorry, John.
Nope, there you are, Cam. I didn't see you pop in.
Yeah, I'm here.
Zone 5, we have Mike DeBrew. Zone 6, we have Peter Klaczynski.
Hi, everyone.
Zone 7 is Vito Fourier.
Excellent. Thank you. Hello.
Zone 8 is Mike Crowder, and I know Mike couldn't be on tonight, but I know Brian was taking notes for him. Zone 9, we have Dave Harrington. Zone 10, we have Conrad Walpott.
Good evening.
And Zone 11, we have Dave Thompson in the north.
Hello.
So again, thanks to all the zone UICs for the help this year, and those that are on for a couple years in the past. Thank you for the help you've gave us in the past years. So we were lucky last year to welcome 3 new level 4 fast pitch umpires in Ontario. We have Steve Harnick, who received his level 4 at the U19 Women's Canadians last year. We have Aaron Gadet, received his level 4 at the U20 Men's last year. And we have Kelsey from Zone 7, who also received her level 4 at the U19 Women's. So congratulations to our new level 4s. We did have one new level 5 in fast pitch last year, and that was Dave Harrington from Napanee in Zone 9. So congratulations to Dave on his level 5. So they were posted on our Facebook page by Brian, but we just wanted to run through our 2026 Canadian Championship selections. It was a great job Brian did posting, and a good way to keep everyone interested and exciting day to day to see who they were. So attending our U15 men will be Lance Nickel from Zone 3 in Wilmot. Alternate will be Cliff Holland from Zone 7. Attending the U15 women is James Chappell from Zone 2. Alternates are Trevor Sloan from Zone 5, Zach Roth from Zone 2, and Rob McDonald from Zone 1. Attending the U17 is Chris Pakla from Zone 11, and our alternates are Terry Pontiac from Zone 9 and Matt Hall from Zone 9. Attending the U17 this year is Eben Deshane Gill from Zone 5. Alternates are Ron Bennett from Zone 1, Delbert Sanchez from Zone 1, and Jared Bertram from Zone 8. The U19 women will be Jeff Nold from Zone 2. Alternates are Martin Frowen from Zone 7 and Warren Blenko from Zone 7. Attending the U20, which is the only Canadian this year being held in Ontario in carp, is Gerard McKenna from Zone 10. Alternates, Tim Whitehead, Zone 9. Kevin Gilchrist, Zone 11. Matt Gary, Zone 8. And Conrad Walpott, Zone 10. Attending U23 men, Dave Thompson from Zone 11. Jason Moss from Zone 8. Aaron Gadet, Zone 9. And Tyler Gamble from Zone 8. Going to the women in Alberta is Heather Dope from Zone 9 and Dave Mills from Zone 1. Now attending the men's and masters for our level 4s this year will be Mike Crowder from Zone 8. Alternates are Dave Jackson from Zone 8, Mike DeBrew from Zone 9, and Chris Carroll was selected from, now he's in Zone 11. So at the men's, we do get a chance to send some of our level 5s. So our first pick for level 5 this year was Trevor Topping, alternate Steve Gallagher, and Dave Harrington. So I'd like to congratulate everyone that's going and to the alternates that hopefully will get lots of extra spots and we can send as many as possible again this year. We were very fortunate last year. We sent about 30 umpires to Canadian championships. Everyone had a great time at the championships. Some did not have as much fun traveling, where it took 14 hours to go from Toronto to Winkler, Manitoba. Correct, Ron, Russ, Connor, Rob? You guys had a great time.
I had a blast. I think my luggage didn't, but
Rob's luggage had a much longer trip than he did.
Yes.
It sure did.
So
minor detail at this point.
Yep. We'll hope those that attend this year have a better travel. So we do have a couple new events coming up for 2026. The save the dates was posted on the Facebook. Last year, the webinars that we hosted were attended very, very well. And there was lots of feedback from them that everyone enjoyed the webinars that happened. So again, the webinars will be back this year. The webinars are being led by a group of our level 5s that were able to put them together for us last year. So a very big thank you to Mike Morrissey, Ed Otterman, who happens to be in Columbia right now at a WBSC event, Trevor Topping, Justin Van Horn, and Daryl Way. This group's been working on getting their topics together along with presenters. So once everything is set, we will post it on Facebook, send an email out also to our members, and we will make sure the Zoom links are posted for everyone to attend each webinar. They will all be recorded again this year, and Brian will be putting them onto our new YouTube page. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get details out with that from Brian. As it was mentioned earlier, there was a Google Doc posted for sure on our Facebook page, looking for umpires that had interest in working provincial championships this year. we will repost the Google Doc and resend it out via email. If you can fill out the form, select the event you're free or willing to work. As the document says, we try to fill events with local first, but we do need other help with some of the bigger events, and travel's covered along with accommodations. Our zone UICs are hard at work already, looking to assign UICs for our provincial tournaments. We will get a list posted also. It will be another very busy summer, and there are 6 weekends in beautiful Windsor this year that I'm sure will be looking for help. We are going to have another busy clinic season. They will start to be posted very soon. If I remember correct, Amanda put a number out of like there's 41 clinics already that have been submitted for the year. So there is another level 3 that is on the Softball Ontario website that you can register for now, that will happen in KW at the end of March. Now, the Fast Pitch Committee, we did make some changes to clinics this year. One change that came from Softball Canada. So for the new umpires and our new youth umpires this year, there will be 9 modules done by each participant online. And then they will attend a 4-hour level 1 in camp in person. Those that are instructing, we've put out a date of next Wednesday, March 4th. There'll be an information instructor evaluators Zoom call held that will be run by Justin Van Horn and Jen Keller Nelson. Justin, do you have anything you want to let everyone know about the new level 1 tonight?
Yeah, sure, John. I will just take a couple seconds here. So, like you were saying, it's initiated by Softball Canada, a new style of education. For those who have both participated in the level 1 clinic as well as people who have instructed at the level 1 clinic, that 7, 8, 9 hour slugfest education day, it's a lot. So Softball Canada has recognized that especially our youth umpires, but even our adult umpires trying to get through that level 1 clinic, it's tough. It's like a survival thing. So rather than try and do it in 9 hours in person, like you were saying, it's a hybrid style. Modules, like 9 modules, I think they're calling them lessons, and then a 4-hour in-person mechanics sort of camp a setup. The 4 hours in person is very active. It's very practical. So that should be a big enhancement for level 1. If you're wondering about level 2 and 3 and beyond, I know Softball Canada has plans to expand this so that level 2 will have a similar format, but that will roll out next year. And so, hey, for anybody who are instructor evaluators, we definitely want you to join us next Wednesday for that Zoom call. We'll not only share information, more specifics about the level 1, but then also just some level 2 and 3 and some evaluating things. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Thanks, Justin. Also for the 2026, the Fast Pitch Committee has come up with an idea to try and help some of our youth umpires move up through the ranks instead of being stuck at level 1. As Jonathan says, we have a lot of youth umpires that umpire for a few years and then they seem to disappear. So we have tried to do the same thing with a level 2 as we did with level 1. The level 1 is the same as last year. New umpires, youth umpires, 12 to 15. It's the $80 for their clinic plus their registration. So to try and move up some of our youth umpires, for those that are 16 and 17, the level 2 this year, they will sign up for the clinic, do the clinic, and get their registration for $150. We're hoping this will help them become more active in our program, and hopefully we can keep them around so that when they go off to school, they stick around, and that if they don't get too busy in life, we can try and make them lifers, as Jonathan said earlier tonight. Anyone have any questions with regards to registration or clinics at this time? If you do, you can yep, Kelly.
Will the instructor clinic that's being hosted next Wednesday also be recorded and posted on YouTube for anyone not available?
We will record it, I'm sure. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Mike?
John, do you have a date for when registration will open this year?
At the moment, our plan is the week of March 9th. We're trying to just finalize a few things with the developer to have things ready to go. Dave?
Sorry, John, did you say that for age 16 and 17, that was level 1 or level 2 clinic?
Level 2.
A level 2 clinic, okay.
Yep.
What if they are that age for a level 1 clinic?
That's fine. If they haven't done the level 1, that's fine. No issues, no problems. We're just trying to move up any that are interested in moving up.
What about a returning level, say level 1 at that age that doesn't want to do level 2?
They can sign up in the level 1. That's fine.
All right, good. Thanks.
Yep. We want to keep them all.
Yeah, no, I got it. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? No. If anyone has ideas, the committee's open to ideas. You can email them to any of us on the committee. We're looking for ways to help recruit and retain umpires, so it's always a good thing. I'm just trying to check my attendance thing to see if our guest speaker has showed up yet. So, but
can I sneak one in, John?
Yeah, you sure can.
So for those clinics for the level 1, is there quizzes as they go through those, sort of each module, or is there a way that we know they've understood and comprehended the information?
So there is, I believe, a quiz at the end of each module.
Okay.
They sign up on these modules they'll get a link sent to them.
Yeah.
As they complete the modules, Brent from Softball Canada is keeping track of who has completed all of them or who hasn't, and is giving us access. So, and if I'm wrong or if there's more to add, Justin, feel free to jump in since he's been the head on this. So,
I think you've got it pretty much right there, John. Actually, just because Brent from Softball Canada has given a few people kind of a behind the curtain sort of look at the program, I went and I actually completed like lesson 1 and 2. Don't mind saying I passed. But there is like ongoing stuff within the lesson, like little, I guess we'll say knowledge checks. But then yes, at the end of the lesson, there is a quiz. The person does have to pass the quiz, but it's all really great because you have to enter in like your email address and your name and your province at the start of the lesson. So as soon as there's completion, a successful completion of a lesson, the participant gets an email saying you've successfully completed lesson 1. Brent Chadwick at Softball Canada will get that same notification. And so then the missing piece, of course, is how does Softball Ontario know? That's when Brent shares that with Softball Ontario. And, so that's kind of how that's all going to come together, if that makes any sense.
While you're on this, Justin, do you want to give a brief as to what the 4-hour in-session camps are going to be detailing?
Chaos.
Yeah.
So this is also developed by Softball Canada, and I'll be sharing the document there next week, although it is live on the Softball Canada website under the Umpire Toolbox already. So Clinton Harvey and Brent Chadwick have compiled a 4-hour plan. Now the plan has detailed drills, but the drills are still, we'll say, flexible enough that an instructor can customize a certain drill. Like, for example, the balls and strikes practicing. Well, what could that look like? It depends if you're in a single gymnasium, a double gymnasium, outside, whether you have 20 participants, 10 participants, 40 participants. Oh, something I forgot to include. So, and this was great inclusion by Jonathan Baker in Softball Ontario. So depending on the facility, that's where the cap is going to be set. So no longer is a host going to have to book a facility that has classrooms and such. But what they do absolutely have to provide is a space that allows the umpires to move and be active. So no, a Legion Hall, we don't want that. A school gymnasium, yes. A school double gymnasium, double yes. If the weather's good and we're into May, a softball field in town or something like that, yeah, we like that too. But it'll be very active. It's drills and it's moving. It's not about rules and stuff because that's what the lessons are for. So you can kind of see the divide in terms of, the knowledge that comes through the lessons, the practice that happens at the in-person experience.
Any other questions?
Yeah, JVH, you got proof that you actually passed that or what?
Hey, I'm not sending you on my email. That's private.
Will there be a tap the cap session?
A what now, Brian?
Tap the cap review. In the strike zone.
Yeah. So we're hoping with these new changes, it will be a little more interesting for some of our new and youth umpires, and hopefully to promote them through our program. And hopefully everyone can attend next Wednesday for Justin and Jen's little session. So they've said they're going to try and keep it to an hour, so it's not all night for those that are attending next week. As this is a new rule change year, with those that register, there will be new rule books sent out to every umpire that registers. They have been ordered from Softball Canada. We'll just wait for them to arrive, and then once they can arrive, those that have registered, we'll start to send them out right away.
John, can I interject for 1 second?
Sure can.
When you do complete your registration this year, please make sure that your address is updated so that we don't send rule books to empty addresses or addresses where you no longer live. We've had a couple instances in the past where that's happened. So just double check, if you have moved, just make sure that you have updated that information when you do register.
And I'm just going to piggyback on that from Jonathan. Yes, when you register, please go in, make sure your mailing address is correct. Those that do provincials, we use that address to mail your check for mileage and everything. And we want to make sure those checks get to you as quickly as we can. We know there were a few issues last year. Some of it was our issues, some of it was some of the MAs, some of it was Canada Post. So I can say I haven't changed my mailing address, but I had checks sent back to Jonathan for some reason. But we're doing what we can to try and get paychecks out to everyone as quick as we can. So moving along. Oh,
sorry, John. Is no other way like e-transfer something quicker? There's nothing new on that kind of front, eh?
E-transfers being done by OA, OR, and PW are still mailing checks.
Checks. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Our nice little guest from the East Coast, I see, has her hand up. Carney.
The import. As far as the exam as well, because everyone knows everyone wants to try and cheat and get things done faster. You can't fast forward the link. You have to watch the whole video all the way through, but it can be paused. Hold on. No, I'm on the phone. It can be paused so they can stop, and if they had to go eat supper or whatever, they can come back to where they were. So it's not that you have to sit at the computer for 4 straight hours and do all of these lesson plans. You can do it on your own pace, but you can't cheat and fast forward. And then you can't go to the next lesson until you pass the first lesson. Vice versa.
Perfect. Thank you. So, any other questions at this moment? No. So I do believe I seen come into the chat our guest speaker for tonight. So at this time, I'd like to introduce and turn this over to Dr. Karen, who is going to chat with us tonight on concussions. We thought this was a good topic concerning our officials, as we had a number of umpires last year suffer from concussions. So, Dr. Karen, I'll leave it up to you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. If you're okay with me sharing my screen, I'll share something I just put together. Now you'll have to bear with me because I put it together like half hour ago, but don't have any fun pictures in it. Let me see here. Send request. So I just sent that over to you. Okay. Let me see if this works here. Is this full screen for you guys or no?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks for having me on. I am joining tonight. I've never actually worked with Softball Ontario. My name's Karen. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Rugby Ontario. And rugby is my main sport, so we see a lot of head injuries. And John reached out, and a couple others reached out to see if I could do a brief talk tonight on concussions. And I know that so many sports, they do talks on concussions all the time, and it can be quite boring. It's like watching drywall, settle. And we've heard so much over the years about, when in doubt, sit them out and all the other stuff. And it's like, what else can you tell me, really? So whenever I try to do any presentations, especially when it pertains to sport, I try to actually make it somewhat relevant and try to link it back to the individual policies for that sport, just to kind of clarify things, because there's so much generic BS out there that I don't need to be repeating everything that you can already read online. So today what we'll do is we'll go through, I actually, about an hour ago, I looked up the Softball Ontario policies, and they're quite laid out like clearly. It's very nice. So we'll just kind of summarize those. From my understanding, everyone in here is mostly umpires. Is that correct? Okay. So I'll lay that out. And then instead of just going through the generic when in doubt, sit them out kind of stuff, we'll go through some of the nuanced situations, the stuff you actually care about, to say, okay, when would I actually call an ambulance? What am I worried about here? What are some of the things that I want to kind of pay attention to? So we'll get started. So session objectives here, again, I know all of you have kind of been through this before where you want to be able to recognize signs and symptoms of a concussion. But we want to emphasize what the responsibilities of the umpires are under Softball Ontario policy so that you guys know you're doing the right thing, what to do immediately on field, and then understand the documentation afterwards. That shouldn't take us too long. And all this stuff can be found online with Softball Ontario, which is great. And then we'll get into the actual like medical stuff. So I'm sure all of you have all heard before, what is a concussion? Well, it's a brain injury. One of the common misconceptions is it has to be caused by a direct blow to the head, but it can be caused by an indirect blow. Someone can fall on their butt and then forces transmit up the spine and it can lead to a head injury. So, you know, those kind of things can happen. It can occur with or without loss of consciousness. And the thing is, it's one of those tricky injuries because you're not going to find it on imaging. It's just kind of going by signs and symptoms that may appear, and those signs and symptoms can come on right away, or they can be delayed up to 24 to 72 hours. So it's really tricky. But we do know, and Softball Ontario is pretty clear on this, that any suspected concussion requires removal from play. So I was looking online, and I did see that Softball Ontario doesn't mandate necessarily that you have medical staff on site for a lot of your amateur events and whatnot. I'm sure if you have big tournaments and like rep events and stuff like that, you might hire some medical staff, sure. But for the most part, what I was reading was that a lot of the times it's left up to coaches, it's left up to team officials, umpires, or the most appropriate adult is what I was reading online, which is totally fine, totally normal. So signs and symptoms that I'm sure you're all aware of already: headaches, dizziness, nausea, confusion or slow responses, any balance problems, sensitivity to light or noise. And then you've heard the classic kind of phrase, when in doubt, sit them out. And to be honest, you're always going to be in doubt because the majority of us aren't healthcare providers, right? And to be honest, too, a lot of the trainers and medics that are on the sidelines sometimes are in doubt. So it becomes a hairy situation, too. I've seen so many medics on the sideline, and then the parent or coach says, should I take this kid to the hospital? And they say, well, if it's this or that, and they give them this wishy-washy answer. And we need to be able to have the confidence to say yes or no. That's what needs to happen in the medical field, is confidence and competence. And it's pretty few and far between sometimes. So let's at least relay that information to their umpires. And I'm not saying that you guys are going to take on the role of medical professionals, but knowing information is really fun. Being the smartest person in the room is really fun. So a couple resources here, and I can send you this PowerPoint if you want at the end. But Rowan's Law was put into place a few years back. This is Ontario-wide. So one thing I have to tell our therapists, so my company, Sportside Medical, we actually contract out and provide medical therapists for major sporting events. And when we send these therapists out, we make sure they're, regulated healthcare professionals, because they work mostly with rugby. They have to be World Rugby certified. They have to have basic concussion training. They have to have, athletic taping training. They have to have first response training. They have to have all this stuff. And we make sure that they're all trained under Rowan's Law. And Rowan's Law stipulates that basically anyone under the age of 18, it's the whole when in doubt, sit them out. So we run into this issue a lot with World Rugby, where a lot of people think that, an athlete can come off, let's say they're 17 years old, get a concussion assessment, and if they're cleared, they can go back on. No. So Rowan's Law states that if you're under the age of 18, that as soon as we're like, oh, can you assess them for their head? They're done. Because at the end of the day, you suspect a concussion. And the majority of the people on the sidelines are not medical doctors or nurse practitioners to be able to appropriately clear them. You could have someone say, oh, I'm a volunteer firefighter, or I'm this or that or whatever, and I'll have a quick look at them. No, they're not working in their capacity. They're not being hired to do that. They're not doing a formal assessment and documenting appropriate notes. So this is a really big issue sometimes we have in rugby is people think they could come off, do a head injury assessment and go back on. Yes, if they're 18 and older. No, if they're under the age of 18. As soon as you're under the age of 18, Rowan's Law stipulates that you need to sit out. Another good resource for you guys, and Softball Ontario actually summarizes this really well, but this is an additional resource outside of here, is the SCAT-6 is not great for you guys because it's mostly based for healthcare providers and it can only be completed by healthcare providers. But the concussion recognition tool, CRT6, it's actually made specifically for coaches, official, lay people that aren't healthcare providers. And I put a link in here to that. And it's a one-page double-sided, so two-page document that basically kind of summarizes how do I recognize a concussion as someone who's not medically trained. So I love this document. So it shows you, and a lot of this is already outlined by Softball Ontario, when you should call an ambulance, when are red flags present. Okay, so any of the following here, and you could like just type this in really quick on Google, CRT6, and it would pop up if you forget any of this. So the red flags are when we have neck pain or tenderness, if the athlete then has seizures, any loss of vision or consciousness, any increased confusion or deteriorating conscious state, weakness or numbness, tingling in the arms and legs, repeat vomiting. Severe and increasing headache is a hard one because it doesn't mean we have, oh, my headache is a 1 or 2 out of 10, and then it went to a 4 or 5. It's my headache was a 1 or 2 out of 10, and now it's a 12 out of 10. And that happened in the span of like 20, 30 minutes. Like it's got to be a very like quick ramp up, and it has to be a severely worsening headache. Okay. Increasing restlessness, agitated or combative, and that's like every teenager known to man. So how do we determine if this is their normal behavior or if this is abnormal? Best thing to do is talk to the parents, talk to people that know them, right? When I have athletes that I'm assessing for head injury, I say, is this their normal behavior? Because I'm meeting them for the first time. And if they have any visible deformities in the skull. So these are all things listed on the CRT6, but they're also things that are doubled down on and mentioned in the Softball Ontario protocol. The thing I like about the CRT6 is it kind of gives you on the second page just a little checklist you could go through if you were a little nervous. It gives you visible clues that would suggest a head injury, and then you could go through physical symptoms that you could just ask them. Do you have a headache? Do you have pressure in the head, balance problems, et cetera, et cetera? You could check in on their emotional state, and then you could also look at any changes in their thinking and behavior. So it gives you a checklist if you wanted to just kind of see what's going on. Not that you're diagnosing or doing anything clinical, but sometimes you just want a framework. And then the last part of this sheet just mentions when to immediately remove them from play. And then if you remove them, then things that you should be avoiding, right? So they shouldn't be left alone. They shouldn't be sent home by themselves. This is a big one. A lot of athletes, especially like, 16, 17-year-olds might drive themselves to the field. When you do suspect a concussion, they really shouldn't be driving home by themselves. So I'm not to say that they absolutely can't drive, but they shouldn't be driving home by themselves. It does say drive a motor vehicle unless cleared by a healthcare practitioner, but obviously if someone's in the car with them, maybe they can switch who's driving, etc. Just something to consider if you're saying, hey, we got to sit you out until you get assessed. So what are the responsibilities for all of you? I think sometimes we don't realize like how powerful officials can be. One of the big things that we do with rugby is even if it's a warm day outside, like our rules are if it's over 30 degrees Celsius or 30% humidity, as soon as I get to the field, I'll walk up to the ref and I'll say, okay, how are we modifying the game? What's going on here? As a medical professional, I'll say to the official, what's the plan? And if they don't have a plan, then maybe I can suggest something. But you guys have a lot of power in terms of controlling the game and controlling the health of the athletes. And the same thing goes for head injuries. So with rugby, we have what's called a blue card rule, where if a referee sees a nasty impact and they don't like that at all, that this is mostly put into place for like the junior level, because sometimes there's not therapists or medics on site. You know how a referee can give like a red card and eject someone from the game, and a yellow card, and then we now have a blue card. So if they see that, they just hold up a blue card, and it means that player gets off the field and they are out. They have to be assessed for their head. So I don't think there's an equivalent in softball Ontario, but you do hold that authority to say, I saw something I did not like, and I want this to be addressed. So you can require immediate removal from play. If you saw something and then obviously the coaches or other staff didn't. Now, if you're going to have parents come down and coaches and this and that and start arguing with you, there's protocols in place, I believe, from Softball Ontario, where there's incident report forms that can be filled out. But at the end of the day, if you saw something you didn't like and you made that decision, nobody should really be overturning that. And if they do, especially at the amateur level, then my question would be, what's wrong with that person? Like, I have the person's safety and best interests at heart. And the worst thing that happens is they could miss a game, go get checked out, nothing's going on, and they return to play right away. But I know sports can get heated, and they could challenge umpires and say, oh, you're out to get us and this and this and this. So I'm not going to get into that stuff. I'm staying just on the kind of medical side of things. But do know there is an incident report for that as well, if you need to escalate anything. If there is someone with medical training on site, you can ensure that they take over to have a look at that athlete. But you have to remember too, with Rowan's law, that if that person's 16 years old and you've already sent them off, should they really be getting a really quick assessment by somebody who you don't know their credentials and they're just saying, oh, I'm so-and-so, I can have a look at them, and then sending them back on? That's a really hairy situation, right? So you got to use your best judgment there. And then the other responsibilities are, if someone is removed from play, then they have to do, then you have to do a completion of the official report. So the documentation is great. I just was told, hey, come talk about concussions tonight. And I didn't get any kind of like, this is what you're talking about. So I went online and just kind of looked this up. And the policy is very, very detailed. I put the link in there. It goes through everything from form submission to, well, I'll pull this one up. I'm not sure if it'll, oh, hang on one sec. I'll pull this one up. I'm so not tech savvy. Don't worry about it. I screenshotted some parts of the form. You can still see my screen there, right? Okay. So this is talking about the red flag symptoms, which I already mentioned before, and all of them overlap very nicely with a lot of the standardized frameworks that we use in the sports medicine field. However, these ones are a little bit more vague. So that's why I kind of highlighted them a bit differently, because headache, if someone says, oh yeah, I have a bit of a headache, does that necessarily mean they have a concussion? Like, not really. Someone could be dehydrated. Someone could have come in with a headache, right? So these are a little bit more vague, and I understand why Softball Ontario has done that. Like, someone could have sadness because they just lost a game. So they are a bit more vague, but they should be taken in context, and we should be, using common sense when applying these. Red flag symptoms, though, these ones are a lot more specific. And I'll explain red flags a little bit more in detail at the end and what the heck we're actually worried about, because I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding that. So the medical clearance requirement for Softball Ontario is they do have to have an assessment done within 48 hours. The reason for this is because a lot of the major medical conditions that we're concerned about happening with concussions, they're going to manifest themselves within 48 hours. So if somebody doesn't get assessed within that time frame, it can actually be quite harmful for them. And in order to actually return to sport, they have to be signed off and have medical clearance by either a medical doctor or a nurse practitioner. So this is important because when they fill out the form, you could have, oh, I went to go see my physio or my massage therapist or my chiropractor or my whoever. But unless it's signed off by a physician or a nurse practitioner, that form doesn't count. And it's not that those practitioners can't diagnose or clear those people at all. It's that from a medical legal perspective, if that individual comes back and it's not signed off by the appropriate healthcare provider, and then the team official didn't check that, let them back to play, now they have an issue. So we're not docking any professions. We're just following the rule of the law because obviously Softball Ontario is going to have insurance. And then if you let them back in without the appropriate signature from the appropriate provider, it's going to null and void the insurance. Yes, Kelly.
Is this medical clearance only required for those individuals under the age of 18, or is this for all individuals that have a suspected concussion?
Great question. So it is required for any athlete that is returning to play after a concussion is diagnosed. So if someone has to go get checked out for a suspected concussion and then they say no concussion, okay, then they can return to play right away. It's got to be signed off by MD or NP. If someone gets diagnosed and they go through the return to play on that final stage, they have to get signed off to fully return. They have to have the note signed off by an MD or NP, and it doesn't matter regardless the age. Now, Rowan's, there is something on Softball Ontario's site saying athletes 26 and older, I have to clarify that, have, or maybe it was Rowan's Law, 26 and older, they're adults at that point and they can kind of take different risks. But I don't know if it was on Softball Ontario's site or on the Rowan site. So I'll look into that. Kearney.
Hi, I am a healthcare person. I'm a nurse, but I'm not a nurse practitioner. But in BC last year, we had a girl from second base running to dive for a ball. The girl from the outfield came and slid in, and the face and the knee collided. So they called for me. You could see that she had a sunken cheek versus the other side. That's why you assess the symmetry. But she went to a hospital in BC and they said, "Oh, you don't have a concussion." Didn't give her any medication for Tylenol, nothing. And her eye, like it was the darkest purple I've ever seen of a bruise ever. And I called John about it, and she went back to Ontario. I saw her mom, and I told her you need to go to Emerge because she had family in Ontario that were in the ER, and she had facial fractures. She had an orbital fracture, and as a teenager, that can be debilitating. So I know there's laws and all this stuff, but we should report, but there should be something that athletes who have head injuries, they should become a priority and not a, oh, you look fine, here's your note, go on, kind of thing. There should be, like, I had a foul ball. I have a mask to prevent concussions, and it hit me in the springs that's supposed to take the blow, and it knocked me clean out. So I went to work. They did a CAT scan just because they know of the level of ball I play or I umpire, and luckily there was nothing wrong, but I had a slight concussion. But it should be taken more seriously versus like this guy is like, oh, you're fine. Like they never even gave her Tylenol or anything. It was sad. It was really sad.
So thank you for bringing that up. Listen, we could go down a rabbit hole, but I'm going to say it to you bluntly. Some people suck. Some healthcare providers suck. Some hospitals suck. You can have a great mechanic and you can have a really shitty mechanic, and it happens in every profession.
Well, the lack of family doctors everywhere burns out the ER doctors, and can't say they don't care anymore, but it's just like in and out, trying to clear out the waiting room.
Yep.
So,
yeah, our Canadian healthcare system has a lot of issues, and we could get into that, but I think we'd be here all night. I've seen it happen a bazillion times, and just because you have a letter, to be frank, doesn't mean shit. So the fact that someone has a letter, at the end of the day, if they come back and say, I have this letter, and they look like an absolute train wreck, are we medical providers? No, but we can refuse play. That's the thing. So we've had it happen before where a rugby player will get knocked unconscious. We'll have this, we'll have that. Orbital blowout fractures, they have, I think it's close to like an 80% chance of having a concurrent concussion related behind it anyways. But we've had people that they go into like, they have a terrible head injury, and we say, okay, I need you to go and we're going to start this return to play protocol and we have to get notes and this and that. And then they wander into some random walk-in clinic who's never met them before. And they go a couple days later and they just lie. And they say, yeah, I have to get this stupid note because, Rugby Ontario is requesting it. And I don't know why. I just got bumped in the head and I don't have any symptoms and I'm fine. They just lie, right? So then the walk-in clinic doctor says, okay, well, you look fine. I'll sign off on it. And they come back with a note. And it's bullshit. Right. So that kind of stuff happens. So that's why it's important that the appropriate documentation is filled out at the beginning. Because if you have something like that, and then 2 days later they come back and it says they're fine to play, no concussion, you say, wait a minute. And the organization can put a stop to that to say, I understand you have a letter, and John, you're going to get a lot of people that, like parents that might fight you on this and stuff like, well, they have a letter, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, the organization has the authority to say, we don't feel safe with you coming back. Let's get a second opinion, or let's do a proper return to play or whatever. But, if they did return to play and they had that medical doctor's note, then the medical legal responsibility falls on that medical doctor's malpractice insurance now in No Softball Ontario. But is that the right answer? Are we still going to let that athlete get hurt because it falls outside of our liability? I don't think so. So these are problems in every sport. It's not just softball. Trust me, you should see the stuff we deal with in rugby. Sometimes it's a nightmare. But I think because parents and officials and everyone are becoming more aware, they're also becoming a lot smarter, and they're not just trying to force their kid back in when they're like, barely conscious, right? But yes, the final say does come down to the organization and the individual coaches and the umpires and whatnot. It doesn't matter what you have written on paper, and people forge documents all the time. So thank you for bringing that up. And our healthcare system is sometimes awesome and it sometimes sucks. So not all healthcare practitioners are the same. So if someone does get diagnosed with a concussion, then they have to go through that graduated return to play that's outlined on the Softball Ontario document. So each of these stages has to have 24 hours in between. So it's really important for you guys to know that, because if someone does get diagnosed with a concussion and 3 days later they're like, I'm ready to go, the answer is no. Because theoretically you're going to have 6 to 7 days, because they have to have 24 hours between each of these stages. So they have to have a rest stage, light aerobic activity, sport specific exercise, non-contact, full contact, and then they can return. And the forms online are actually great. I looked through them. It's like a really easy one-page form, and it outlines all the stages. The downside is that each stage you have to, it just says, yes, I completed this stage and I had no symptoms, signed by a parent, guardian, or the athlete, and put the date. So you don't have to have it signed by a healthcare provider, which is a good thing because that could be really cumbersome, but it's also a bad thing because people lie. But the upside to this is at least it makes people who are diagnosed with concussion wait a minimum of 6 to 7 days before they can return. So there's no kind of way around that. Even if you are lying through your teeth, majority of minor head injuries are going to heal within 7 to 10 days anyways. So at least it gives them that period of rest and then a gradual return to sport. And it is something too, where when they go through that graduated return, this is something that coaches and other team officials can be signing off on, saying, okay, Bobby, you're back to playing. Today you can join practice and you could do the sport specific stuff and do some drills. On the next day, on next practice, you could do non-contact and slide into home or whatever you're doing, and then full contact, etc. Right? Yes, Dave.
This is more of a general statement, but when you say there's got to be a wait period, so try to imagine, I know you said you're rugby and not softball, but as an umpire, I get to a tournament, say on a Friday, and this kid has been, say, concussed on Wednesday. There is zero way for me to know that. So I understand you want to say it's someone, the umpire, to do this, enforce this stuff, but that has to fall on the team trainer, the member association that might have this knowledge. Like I'm probably from out of town where that tournament would be. I would have no way of knowing what happened to that kid, as I said, on a Wednesday, and I'm at tournament weekend to see, because it's just not possible, right? So
Yeah. Oh, that's 1,000% correct, and that's a logistical question. I know with Rugby on Ontario, so this is not, from my understanding, the responsibility of the umpire at all.
yeah,
But I'm making you aware of the return to play process. But I know with rugby, that falls on the coaches and the team staff and the people that are seeing the athlete every day. I'm just making the umpires aware of it, because even same thing with rugby, like referee's not going to show up and know if they went through all those stages. So that this checking in on this does not fall on you at all. I'm just making you aware of it.
yeah, and maybe for Jonathan, maybe a point that the coaching staff have to be aware that this is mostly their responsibility. We're not the ones leading the ship here. We got enough going on the ball diamond, let alone to worry about someone injured. That's just the way it is. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and that's the issue with a lot of this concussion stuff. Is just, a lot of times it is, you can have amazing policies from the top down and then they don't get implemented. We face the same thing at Rugby Ontario, trust me, because no one's talking to nobody. And then we have issues where a kid is playing rugby at high school through the YRAA and they get a head injury, and the high schools don't tell us at the club level that they got an injury, and no one's communicating. So there's lots of room for error, and there's going to be little things that slip between the cracks. But at the end of the day, if everyone just does their best and knows the policies, that's all you can really do, right? It's a constant work in progress, and at the end of the day, athletes lie, people aren't honest, cross organizations aren't talking. There's a lot of areas that things can go wrong, but your responsibility as an umpire is, I'm going to control what's in front of me, and with the stuff that I see in the game that I'm managing, I'm going to manage well. What happens outside of that, there could be institutional problems, but as long as you're managing from when you're on the clock to when you're off the clock, and then when you do your documentation, you're like, my job here is done. That's all. I think that's all Softball Ontario asks of you. That's all I really can ask of you, because anything outside of that is just an institutional nightmare. So, but this is not just a softball problem. Trust me. So this is kind of like a little policy summary that I just snapshotted off the actual forms online. So it identifies the most caring adult. So who is that? I don't know. You just pick whoever seems like they know the most, I guess. But maybe if they're a healthcare provider, if they have specific concussion training, if nobody's there that has that, you got to go by a coach or team official. Yes, Ron.
Rosters for PWSA, which a lot of our officials are umpires for PWSA games. Rosters must have a trained, noted, most caring person. And I think it's even on our lineup cards for some of our events. I coached many years for the PWSA, and I had a nurse, and it's not the coach's responsibility.
Awesome.
It is someone on the roster, though, a parent usually.
Awesome. Good to know. I would want to be that person, but I would want my label to say that. Most caring adult. Heather, what's your question?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you would know the answer to this one, or it'd be John or Jonathan to answer it. But if we suspect a concussion or a situation that could lead to something in that situation, if we say we're going to remove them from the game, based on step one of this screen here, the most caring adult can overrule us and just be like, nope, they're in the game anyway. So whose argument are we going to have? Like, we make a lot of discretionary calls all game long. And for that one to be another one that some random parent just gets to say, no, you're wrong about that too.
So I have my opinion on this, but I think it's a better question for John. I know in rugby, okay, if there is a therapist assigned to the team on site, the referee can put up the blue card, but that doesn't mean the person's out of the game. It can mean go see the medical professional to get assessed, right? So, but the referee maybe saw something, like if I'm on the sideline that I didn't see because I wasn't paying attention, or I didn't have a good angle or whatever. So it always defaults to the person of highest medical authority. But John, I'm going to let you answer that because I don't know what the protocol is for Softball Ontario.
Yeah. So it is that if the official sees something catcher gets hit in the head with a foul ball, whatever, we can have that player temporarily removed to go to the most caring person that is listed, and they have to go through the protocols that they have set up, that the MAs have set up. So
Perfect. Yeah, that's very similar to rugby, like, because at the end of the day, you know, we're not expecting referees and umpires and people like that to be medical professionals, but you're also in it, and you're going to see things that we don't see. So I love it when a ref puts up their blue card and says, "Hey, this is what I saw. Can you have a look?" I said, "Thank you." You know, I turned my back for 2 seconds and I missed something, right? So that's kind of how it should be. So hopefully that answers your question, and the person with that designation would kind of make that call.
Yeah, sorry. So just a follow-up to it as well there. If we do remove them for half an inning or an inning or whatever it is till their most caring person says they're good to come back, what does that do for our personal liability on the diamond or to that game?
Should transfer it.
Perfect.
It that's because in any first aid setting, we say you transfer to someone of equal or greater certification to you. And if somebody has the most caring adult badge on them, then they have equal or greater certification. It should transfer that liability from a straight up first aid standpoint.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question.
Mhm.
I guess this is going to you too, John. I was still under the impression that we do not have the right to actually take somebody out of the game. We could only suggest.
no, we can tell them they have to go to the most caring person to get checked.
So that seems like a shift in policy then, because we had discussions last year with had discussions with a couple of different people, and that's on our exam. As we say, we can only say something. We can't actually take them out. We can't say you're coming out.
Yeah, we can.
We can. Okay.
Yep.
Kevin,
Thank
that
you.
would fall under the blood and concussion rule that's in the rule book.
Yep.
I like when these discussions actually become discussions and it clarifies some of those hairy areas. So that's good. This is the bottom page of that summary sheet online. So again, the link I had there, you guys have great resources. It summarizes everything, right? So if someone does get diagnosed with a concussion, then you have to get all your medical documentation done and send them on to Softball Ontario's office. If it's a no, then they can be monitored for a couple of days. And it says send medical documentation if no diagnosis to team trainer. So I was just trying to figure this out. So if there is a diagnosis, either way, the team trainer is sending it to Softball Ontario. So it's just a matter of if they have to go through the return to play protocol and get extra signatures for clearance, or if they could just return right away. Is that correct, John?
Yes, and it goes to Softball Ontario or the MAs. So
yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, so from a policy and like a logistics perspective, I just kind of put a couple summary points here. You're not diagnosing anyone, you're protecting them. You do have the authority to stop play, to answer your questions there. Any safety concerns always override any competitive pressure. And then when you're in doubt, you can always remove them and document it and send it to the most caring adult or whoever's assigned to that. So my area of expertise is really in advanced concussion management. And I'm not trying to turn you guys into healthcare practitioners, but this kind of stuff is really interesting and fun to know because let's face it, when we aren't sure, everything becomes a big gray area. So just having this information, again, like we don't expect you to need to execute it, but it's just really interesting to know. So it's always fun being a smart person. So what are we actually worried about? So when I'm educating young healthcare providers on sport-specific concussion education, now this is not talking about like if a concussion is already diagnosed and then how we go about treating it, return to play and this and that, because there's so much, that's a whole month course. There's so much research on the pathophysiology behind concussions and chemical cascades and all this arguments over should we sit them out for 5 days, 10 days, 7, 30 days. Like it's just crazy, right? And that's that we're not going to get into that. But what are we actually worried about? So when someone takes a blow to the head or the body and we're worried about their brain, I kind of try to simplify it to black and white. And I know people are like, well, you can't make it black and white. It's like, well, you can in emergency medicine. Emergency medicine is very black and white. So is this a medical emergency or not? Right. So what we worry about is the big injuries. Is this a bleed to the brain, a fracture to the skull, or is it a cervical spine injury? And if it's not one of those three, guess what? It's a mild traumatic brain injury, AKA a concussion, right? So we want to be able to say, is it one of these holy shit kind of massive injuries, or is it a mild traumatic brain injury? So a concussion is a functional injury. We can't diagnose it on a CT scan or MRI or this or that, no matter what anyone tells you. It's got to be by signs and symptoms and functional testing and stuff like that. Some people claim, oh, you can take blood work and see blood markers and this. It's a functional injury. Okay, so that's why it's such a hairy area. And that's why a lot of concussion clinics and healthcare providers make a lot of money off this, right? Because if there's no way to objectively on a CT scan or something diagnose it, they could say, oh yeah, you got a head injury and I got to see you for this many times and treatments and this and that. And it's to be honest, it's kind of gone south where it's turning into like a major business model to make a lot of money off people. But at the end of the day, it's a functional injury, and the majority of people recover from it very well within 7 to 10 days. And the very small minority of individuals will have longer symptoms that take some time. What we are concerned about is those big holy shit injuries. So we're worried about the bleeds to the brain, the fractures to the skull, fractures to the C-spine. So this is what actually kills people. This is what creates lawsuits. This is what the whole, why didn't you sit them out? Why didn't you do this documentation? So this is what I like to focus on, especially for officials, because you're not following these kids home and monitoring their signs and symptoms and following up a week later and this and this and this. You want to be the person who's, I'm here, I'm paid from 8 to 4 to do this tournament. I'm managing this game and it's going to be safe when I'm here. And if I see anything I don't like that falls into this holy shit category, I'm stepping in. So this is kind of where a lot of team trainers and officials need to have the majority of expertise. So we'll talk about that. So I know you can look up, sorry, I'll go back. There's 3 types of bleeds to the brain. So there's epidural, subdural, and intracranial bleeds. And again, I'm not trying to turn into medical professionals, but epidural bleeds are like fast bleeds, like a pipe has burst, like blood's rushing into the brain. These people have kind of minutes before they start going downhill quickly and they and potentially could not recover. It's the subdural and the intracranial bleeds that are like really slow leaks, bleeds to the brain. And that's where things get hairy. And that's why we tell parents to monitor these athletes for 24 to 72 hours, because that's the timeline where 99.99999% of subdural and intracranial bleeds will rear its ugly head. So if you've ever wondered, like, why are we picking this arbitrary timeline? It's because that's when these bleeds are going to happen. I have never read a case report where a subdural or intracranial bleed has happened beyond 72 hours. And I've only read one case report where a subdural or intracranial bleed has happened at 72 hours. So the majority of cases are going to happen within the first 24 to 48 hours. Okay, so that's good to know. So another thing, and we'll go through the signs and symptoms of these, but another thing that's a really hairy topic is, when do I tell someone we got to call an ambulance versus you can hop in the car and drive to the hospital kind of thing, right? People ask this all the time. And my answer is like, if you're making the decision that somebody needs to go to the hospital because this is bad enough, you should be calling an ambulance to do so, right? Yes, some people would be like, oh, the hospital is just 2 minutes down the road, I can drive them. But I don't think people understand how our Canadian healthcare system works. when you walk into a hospital, you get triaged very differently, aka very slowly. Whereas when you arrive via ambulance, you get triaged en route by the paramedics. So if you are sending someone to the hospital, you're sending them because you're dealing with one of these holy shit injuries. So if you're sending to the hospital, it's because you're suspecting a bleed to the brain, a fracture of the skull, a fracture of the neck. So my argument is if you suspect that, you should probably be activating EMS so they could be triaged en route. Paramedics will triage them and take a proper history. And when they arrive at the hospital, they're going to be seen 1,000 times sooner.
No, they won't. An ambulance is a mode of transportation. It's seriously, I've had people, I had a kid come in via ambulance for a tongue infection post tongue ring insertion. So it's a mode of transportation in the Canadian healthcare system, unfortunately.
I understand what you're saying, but I am also going to correct myself and you on that. When they are triaged en route by the paramedics, if they are triaged appropriately, they will be seen 1,000 times sooner. If someone calls an ambulance for bullshit, then they will arrive to the hospital and they will be treated like as such. So if you call an ambulance for bullshit, you will not be seen faster. If you call an ambulance for legitimate reasons, code 3, code 4 reasons, and they triage you appropriately, you will 1,000% be seen faster, period. So it depends on what you're calling for, if it's bullshit or not, and if paramedics know how to triage people. But it's always going to trump if someone's mom drives them into the hospital and then triages them at the front. So there's always caveats, yes. But that's why we can't call for my nose is bleeding, right? A lot of people call ambulance for terrible, terrible reasons, and we know that, okay? So my argument is, if you have any of these worrisome signs and symptoms that you're suspecting, then really they should be going on route via ambulance. When people say, should I bring them to the hospital? And parents are wondering if they should transport them themselves, that's when they could be going for other reasons when they fall into a different category. So I'll highlight that. And I just kind of made this up. I categorized it into like a green, yellow, and a red category. So we'll go through that. So when is ER appropriate? So if you have a stable athlete that's awake, they're talking, they have a completely normal exam, but they start to get persistent symptoms, worsening symptoms, delayed onset of symptoms. They're not improving after several hours. So for example, they have headaches that escalate. They have increasing drowsiness. They have behavioral changes later that evening. They have new vomiting, etc. This would be an incident where you'd say, yes, please drive them to the hospital. But if they are at the actual baseball field and they have any of these symptoms come on immediately, you should be sending them via ambulance for the fastest transport, okay? Because then we're looking at an epidural bleed, we're looking at a fracture of the skull, we're looking at a C-spine fracture. If this were to happen later with these persistent symptoms when the parent is monitoring them at home, for sure they should be driving them into the hospital, okay? And I'll talk about that with this system here. So a green tag would be remove this athlete from play and just monitor them. So this is if an athlete is stable, they have no red flags, which are clearly highlighted in all the Softball Ontario documents and the CRT6 document. If they have no deterioration of their signs and symptoms, you suspect a concussion, but at the end of the day, they've just got mild signs and symptoms. Sure, take them out of play. They can't go back the same day. They need a medical assessment within the next day or two. Yellow, send to hospital, but transport via ambulance is not necessary. So if they're stable, but they're getting a bit worse, so they have some new symptoms that are emerging, the parent is generally feeling uncomfortable with the changes that are happening because they're behavioral and not within the norm. They've got some sort of unusual mechanism that we're not really understanding what's going on here. You can strongly consider EMS transport if like, let's say it's a tournament and you're still there and you want to transport them that way, but it's totally acceptable to have their parent drive them to the hospital in this case. Red is when you want to call 911. So obviously this is when you have your big red flags: unconscious, seizing, repeated vomiting. Neurological signs. So we're not expecting you guys to do a full neurological exam, but if the person reports any numbness, tingling, anything like that, any motor weakness, those are basic neurological signs we're expecting you to be aware of, or if there's any concern that there could be injury to their neck. And from a research perspective, repeated vomiting after a head injury is actually more predictive of some sort of intracranial bleeding than just an isolated headache alone. So if somebody does have a headache, and what is repeated vomiting? It's classified as greater or more than 2 times. I know that seems very vague. So it can't be that I kind of vomit and vomit, vomit, and then I go sit down. That's not repeated vomiting. It would be I vomit, I have a period where I feel a lot better for about 10 to 15 minutes and nothing's happening. And then I go back into a state where I'm vomiting. So there has to be a clear finish to that first set of vomiting. And then it happens again. It's greater or equal than 2 times. And I didn't want to get too medically, deep on this, but if ever you wanted to go deeper on it, there's a lot of documents like the Canadian CT head rules. There's the Canadian C-spine rules. There's a whole bunch of stuff online that show how this correlates with head injuries, and the sensitivity and specificity of it is like over 95%. So it's very, very high. So I am not a softball expert by all means. Rugby is my sport, but mechanism of injury is mechanism of injury. So when we worry in softball, what I worry about is anything with the neck, is any axial loading. So anything falling down on top of the head like this. But softball, I don't think that would happen too often unless someone's sliding into a base. The reason why we worry about a load coming in through this way, a lot of people worry about loads coming through the front or the back of the head. And yeah, they're not great, but a load coming in from the top of the head is actually very dangerous because it transmits forces through the spinal column as opposed to the vertebral bodies. So this can lead to spinal cord injury. So keeping an eye on like sliding into bases and having a direct impact to the top of the head transmitting down is quite dangerous. Foul tips directly to the catcher's mask are at high velocity and can be quite dangerous. Head to ground impact on a dive, again, less dangerous than if it was axial load, but still dangerous nonetheless. Bat swingbacks, obviously from trauma to the face. A thrown ball to the temporal region. The temporal bone is actually quite thin. So again, this can happen in the outfield and the infield, but pitchers are especially at high risk for this. And then if there's any outfield sprint collisions, again, you have to use your judgment on that. This is just another thing. Again, this is higher level stuff, but this is something to be aware of. There's something called a lucid phase when we're talking about brain injuries, where it's actually quite terrifying. And if anyone's ever seen it, they'll never forget it. So if someone does get such a traumatic head injury that it causes an epidural hematoma, very rarely, but it can happen. It could present with, and I've seen this happen with pitchers. They get a line drive to the head, so they get an initial impact. It usually happens with a brief loss of consciousness, and they wake up and they seem completely fine. And what happens after that is they deteriorate rapidly. So it can also happen, and I've seen it in rugby, where someone takes a contact to the head. They have signs and symptoms, and they're feeling groggy, disoriented. They have loss of consciousness, etc. And then all of a sudden, I check in on them a minute later, and I'm completely fine. And they get up, they walk around, they're talking, and it's freaky because the length of time it takes for them to deteriorate should be the length of time it takes for them to come back, or almost doubled, right? But you shouldn't see deterioration and then a bounce back, and they come back and they say, I'm completely fine. If you see that, that is a medical emergency. It means they're going to drop, and they're going to drop fast. And this typically happens with very big bleeds to the brain. So I'm not trying to confuse anybody, but it's called a lucid phase or a lucid interval. And it's just something to be aware of. If you have an athlete that just pops up and says they're fine after a pretty traumatic injury and loss of consciousness, don't be fooled by that and let them wander off on their own, because 3 minutes later, they could probably be unconscious, seizing on the floor. So I put together some cases, but I feel like I just wanted to talk quickly about, I don't know if I touched on this well enough. No, we'll go through this and then we'll talk about it at the end. Okay, so case one, the catcher foul tip. So we have a 16-year-old catcher who takes a foul tip straight to the mask, falls back briefly, gets up, says she's fine. Headache is maybe 4 out of 10, no vomiting, normal speech, seems pretty low. Trauma, she's conversing appropriately, making good eye contact. What do you think the next steps would be? Would this be considered green? Sorry, I'm just turning off my heater. Would this be considered green, where you would just remove them from play and monitor? Would this be yellow, drive to the hospital, or red, ambulance? If anyone feels like answering, they can. If not, I'll just talk through.
I think green.
Yeah, seems very, very safe. Seems like a very common occurrence that would happen. Everything seems fine. Nothing's worsening, no vomiting, no red flags. I would completely agree. Case two, collision at home plate. We got a runner and a catcher that collide at full speed. The athlete briefly is unconscious for 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a long time when someone's unconscious. Wakes up confused and vomits on the field. What would we consider? Would this be
red,
green, red, or yellow? Lynn says red. Yeah, Lynn, I'd agree. I don't like the vomiting. I don't like the brief temporary unconsciousness, the confusion, change in mental status. Let's call. I would agree. Case three. The seam's fine, shortstop. So a shortstop dives, hits his head on the ground, finishes the inning and seems normal. And then 2 hours later, the parents are saying that his headache's worsening. He's increasingly sleepy. He's vomited once. What do we do now?
911.
911. Okay, anyone else? I didn't even realize there's a chat here. That's okay. Yeah, so this is one of those hairy situations, right? Like the person it's 2 hours later, right? And is this person still even at the field? Are they at home? Like, we don't know, right? So if this person was at home and the parent's saying that, or if it's at the field, you could call 911 for sure. It could be something where you say, you know what, drive him to the hospital right now. Because if an epidural bleed were to happen, it's going to happen really quickly. Could it be still a fracture to the skull? Is there a subdural bleed? We don't know. But if you said yellow or red, it would be completely, justifiable, right? And it just depends on your level of comfort. So with this parent, I would probably say, listen, I'd probably put the kid in the car and drive him off to the hospital. However, I'd be asking a lot more clinical questions at that point from a healthcare provider standpoint to say, you know what, call an ambulance, right? Because it's one episode of vomiting, I might be comfortable with them driving, but it's totally fine for you guys to look at this one and be like, I'm a little confused because it's not exactly clear cut. And that's right, it's not. So yellow or red would be totally normal. So key takeaways I just wanted to emphasize with this presentation is, again, you guys don't need to know how to diagnose concussions. You're identifying risk. You're protecting the athlete, and it's important for you to be able to recognize those holy shit situations, know what to do when symptoms worsen and risks increase, and kind of when to know, like, all right, should we be calling an ambulance or at least be bringing this child or athlete to the hospital? And just some things to remember at the end is that concussions are very, very, very common. So we don't want to be sending everybody and their brother to the hospital every time they bonk their head. Brain bleeds, and skull fractures and C-spine fractures are exceptionally rare. Okay. But we need to be able to recognize when the rare becomes the case, right? So I know that we want to have a little bit more clear-cut understanding of, like, what are the signs and symptoms, maybe for the red flaggy stuff versus not. So we can talk about a little bit that at the end if there's questions. But that's basically what I wanted to present on to tonight. I didn't want to go more than an hour and have you guys not tune out completely. So there's my info, my email's there. And the other thing my organization does, we provide therapists for events, but I also do standard and first responder first aid training. So if you ever have a team or organization that says, you know what, we want to get like 6 or 7 of our coaches certified, recertified in standard first aid or something like that, you can always give me a call too, because I do that all the time for organizations and individuals. And when I do it, I make it very specific for what they're asking, right? So if I go to I just recertified like the rink staff at hockey arenas. We go through all their hockey injuries that they can see and Zamboni stuff and blah, blah, blah. Instead of making it the generic, like, push on the chest hard and fast. So there's my contact information there. But if anyone would like to just clarify or talk about any of the stuff I talked about, feel free. I tried to make it a little more practical and not get too healthcare providey on you.
Any questions for Dr. Karen?
Just to clarify, Dr. Karen, were you suggesting in that first case that we're pulling them from the game and monitoring them for 24? They're
for the first case,
24 hours.
Yeah, the first case that was green. No, you don't have to pull them from the game and monitor for 24 hours, but you should pull them from the game and send them to that most caring adult person and get them checked out. And that person would then take over from there. Yeah.
Who's going to pull the umpire of the game when he gets hit in the head of the ball? Just wondering.
Who's going to pull the umpire?
Yeah.
His partner.
Oh, yeah, right.
His partner.
You see my partner? Yeah.
So all the foul tips, we're saying we should be getting people pulled?
Absolutely not. No. So I always tell my students, when you're doing a true or false exam and you ever see the word always or every time or blah, 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 you're probably going to circle false, right? So yeah, no, just because I said a foul tip is a more dangerous mechanism of injury does not mean every foul tip needs to be pulled from the game. It's just good to know what mechanisms of injury are a little more dangerous than others. That's all, just for awareness.
Perfect. Thanks, Dr. Karen. We appreciate you giving up your time tonight to speak to everyone that's on the call. So
thank you very much. Well, you have my email there. I'll respond to your email and I'll send you that little PowerPoint. And then if you have anyone ever needs my contact or needs to reach out, then you have that as well. But I'll sign off. And if there's anything you guys need, you know where to find me. And if your kids love softball, tell them how great rugby is as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen.
Have a good night and have a safe season.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So on to our last part of business tonight. So we are going to announce our award winners from 2025. So first award for this evening is our Fastpitch Youth Umpire of the Year. This young up-and-comer worked many events around the province in 2025, including the U13 Grands in Windsor. This young umpire is confident, consistent, and remains calm. Living in Dundas, Ontario, our Fastpitch Youth Umpire of the Year is Douglas Kihiro from Dundas. All recipients will receive a plaque or trophy that we've had made up, and we will be presenting the awards at an event during the year. So congratulations to Douglas for being our Youth Umpire of the Year. The Fastpitch Rookie of the Year This official took her level 1 as an adult to help out. She started working rep ball, helped out at U13 provincials, and moved up quickly to U22 tournaments and working some men's ball. From Newmarket, Ontario, the winner of the Fastpitch Rookie of the Year is Heather Martin. Congratulations, Heather. Now, Heather, are you on the call? No? Okay. The 2025 Zook of the Year. So this is always a tough choice for the panel to pick, as our Zooks all do an outstanding job. But the 2025 Zook of the Year does tons of traveling to assist at clinics, brings participants with him to clinics and to other events, travels to provincial events where needed, and had an OASA U11 event in his hometown last year held in Bracebridge. The 2025 Zook of the Year is Dave Thompson from Zone 11. Congratulations, Dave. And we know Dave is here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Congrats, Dave.
Thanks, Wes.
The Doug Kundle Umpire of the Year for 2025. This recipient worked many provincial events in 2025 across the province, helped instruct a number of clinics, worked local games during the week in his area, and also was able to attend the U19 Women's Canadians to fill in for last minute needed. The 2025 Doug Kundle Umpire of the Year Award is awarded to Paul Cormier.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Good job, Paul.
Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
So our last award for this evening is the Jim Bradford Award. It's given to an individual that follows in Jim's footsteps with instructing at clinics, helps supervise, evaluates umpires at all levels, and delivers education to all our umpires. Again, it was a tough choice, but the 2025 Jim Bradford winner is Mike Morrissey. Now, I know Mike's not on the call as he decided to go on holidays where it's warmer, but congratulations, Mike. So, in closing for tonight, we want to thank everybody for attending the Blue Symposium. Again, congratulations to all our award winners. A huge thank you to Dr. Karen for being with us tonight, and to everyone that's been on the call for almost the last 2 hours. We hope to see everyone on the diamond very soon as the weather warms up. And everyone, please have a great night. If anyone has questions, you can email them to us and we'll do the best to get you the answers you need back. So thank you and good luck this season.